A spectacular crash involving a stolen vehicle in Brampton. Peel Regional Police are looking for two men who ran from the wreckage. Good afternoon. It happened this morning at Highway 50 in Queen Street.
And one of the men in the stolen vehicle has been arrested. CTV's Rahim Ladani joins us live now from the scene with the latest. What can you tell us, Rahim?
Well, Michelle and Nathan, good afternoon. I can tell you that the intersection has reopened here at Highway 50 and Queen Street, which is in Brampton along the border in Vaughan. This started out as a multi-vehicle collision, but it has since expanded and evolved into a stolen vehicle investigation. Police were first called to a three-vehicle collision shortly after midnight. Two trucks and a minivan, all with significant front and side end damage, appear to have collided at the intersection. It's still unclear of the events leading up to this moment or which vehicle police believe was stolen. Police initially said that after the crash, two men were seen fleeing eastbound, one wearing a silver coat. However, we do have an update that police were actually searching for a total of 3 individuals, and one of them has been taken into custody for what is now a stolen vehicle investigation. The 3 vehicles which were involved have been towed from the scene. However, there is still a significant amount of debris on this roadway, and that's what we want to show you right now. We did see fire crews, police, and tow crews do somewhat of a cleanup, but quite frankly, it was not very effective. They did sprinkle some sawdust and kick some of the debris to the side, but you can still see the debris littered across the roadway. Just since we've been standing here, we can actually hear the debris crunching underneath the tires of vehicles as they roll through here. We've also seen debris flying into the air. And so anyone that is passing by this intersection certainly wants to take extreme precautions for their vehicles. But again, this intersection of Highway 50 and Queen Street has reopened, and anyone with information about the investigation is asked to contact police. Reporting live, I'm Rahim Ladani. I'll send it back to you both in studio.
Thank you, Rahim. Next to a house fire in Oshawa that's left a man dead.
The home on Center Street South in the Simcoe Street and 401 area was gutted by flames. CTV's John Musselman joins us now live from the scene. John.
Well, this was a devastating fire. I'll just step out of the way here and show you what's left. We're looking at a shell of a home here. Neighbors say this fire reached incredible heights. The flames were just shooting out of the windows, and the home was fully engulfed before the fire department got here. We also talked to some neighbors who actually tried to rescue the man who was inside the home. Now, we have confirmed with neighbors and the man's daughter that the victim has been identified as 76-year-old Bruce Scarlett. Now, Bruce Scarlett worked at Scarlett Tree Service. It's well known out here in Oshawa. Neighbors say he was an incredibly friendly man, well known in the community and well liked. Here's what people had to tell us this morning.
It was the glass breaking from the front. I ran to the front of my house and I saw my neighbor calling 911. I automatically ran out of the house and ran right across the street, right up to the flames of his door, and I was screaming his name, just trying to get his attention or anything. So I ran back and I grabbed the fire extinguisher. And I came back and the awning and everything was on fire and falling. I couldn't do nothing.
And because of his vehicles being in the driveway, we all knew he was home. That was just he wouldn't go off with someone else. And it was very distressing just to see the house engulfed, and it's just terrifying, absolutely.
Now, we did have a chance to see some home security video of that fire, and it was quite incredible, the amount of flame here, and we could see and hear neighbors trying to help the man who was trapped inside that home, calling out his name, Bruce, come out, Bruce. The fire department did arrive on the scene. They were able to get it under control, but sadly, the victim was not able to get out of the home. We'll have much more on the story tonight on CTV News at 5 and at 6. Reporting live, I'm John Musselman. I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, John. Still to come on CTV News at noon, a special report amid the looming Trump tariff threat. We examine the potential impact on the auto parts sector. CTV's Sean Leithong with the latest in his multi-part series.
But first, the extreme cold remains in Toronto with the overnight temperature dipping to -15, well below normal. And here's a live look at the city this afternoon, another cold one. We're in the middle of that polar vortex, so I'm sure you know by now how important it is to bundle up in lots of layers. The big question, how long will this Arctic air last? Lindsay Morrison's here with a look at the current conditions. Lindsay.
Well, Nathan, today is the day for all your warmest gear. The jacket, the hat, the mitts, everything. We are really in the worst of it now. Minus 12 degrees currently in Toronto, feeling like minus 20, and it will throughout the afternoon. Our coldest temperature of this cold snap likely to arrive overnight tonight. Environment Canada just recently expanding this extreme cold warning to include the city of Toronto and essentially all of the GTA, warning of wind chill around minus 30 overnight tonight. Now, we've got gusty winds coming out of the west once again. That is contributing to lake effect snow just about everywhere all around the GTA. For us, it's loads of sunshine, but do not let that sunshine fool you. It is very cold. If you're doing any traveling, you need to know about snow squall warnings. We'll talk about this and, again, give you an idea of when temperatures are going to moderate at least a little bit. That's coming up in your forecast. For now, Nathan, over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. U.S. President Donald Trump confirmed last night he's still planning to impose a 25% tariff on Canadian exports.
And he provided a date he plans to bring them into effect.
We're thinking in terms of 25% on Mexico and Canada because they're allowing vast numbers of people. Canada's a very bad abuser also. Vast numbers of people to come in and fentanyl to come in. I think February 1st.
Trump made that comment while signing executive orders in the Oval Office yesterday, hours after he was sworn in. And Prime Minister Trudeau responded to the tariff threat while attending a Liberal cabinet retreat in Quebec.
He told reporters this afternoon the federal government will stand up to tariffs.
Of course, if the president does choose to proceed with tariffs on Canada, Canada will respond. And everything is on the table. Working in unison with Team Canada, as Team Canada, with business leaders, organized labor, civil society, Indigenous leaders, and premiers from coast to coast to coast, we are prepared for every possible scenario. In fact, just last night, I spoke to Premier Ford in his capacity as chair of the Council of the Federation, and he reiterated his unwavering commitment on behalf of Canadian premiers to working all together. This is an important and challenging moment for Canada and for Canadians. And we know there will be many such moments.
The Prime Minister also responded to President Trump's concerns about the border. Trudeau says Canada is already working collaboratively to keep citizens safe on both sides of the border.
And it's clear from the Prime Minister's comments he's counting on Ontario Premier Doug Ford.
And the Premier's continuing his own fight on the business pages of the Wall Street Journal. Let's bring in CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris for the very latest on the Premier's fight against tariffs. Siobhan.
Well, Doug Ford wrote an op-ed for the Wall Street Journal. In it, he talks up the Fortress Am-Can approach he's been pitching the last few weeks on this side of the border. He talks about ways that Canada and the U.S. can collaborate on things like energy security and boxing out China. Doug Ford says this can lead to prosperity for both of our countries. He goes on to write in that piece in the Wall Street Journal, Canada and the U.S. must remain united and focus on the threats that risk undermining our success. A costly trade and tariff war between the U.S. and Canada would benefit only China and Chinese-backed companies by creating economic uncertainty. The Premier hasn't said more since Trump suggested tariffs were coming on February 1st. But Ford said yesterday he'd need a new mandate to deal with the Trump administration for the next 4 years. That makes the chance of an early election and soon much stronger. It's something opposition party leaders say today is unnecessary.
The answer to chaos is not more chaos. What we need is leadership, not showmanship. You can't just slap a label on a hat. You have to have a plan.
We are committed to working across party lines and across jurisdictional lines to put Canadian workers, Canadian jobs, and Canadian businesses first. We need to show strength and unity to defend Canada, and now is not the time for an election.
Now, the Premier has a trip to Washington, D.C. scheduled for mid-February. Bonnie Crombie said today if Premier Ford were to go on that trip after calling an election, it would be an abdication of duty. He has to be here to deal with problems facing Ontario. Reporting live from Queen's Park, I'm Siobhan Morris. Nathan and Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Siobhan. The Prime Minister and Premier Ford are portraying a united front and touting a retaliatory approach to tariffs.
But Alberta's Premier is suggesting a different tactic. Danielle Smith thinks Canada should try to show Donald Trump that both countries can benefit by resolving the tariff situation.
I'm prepared to approach it from that perspective because we do have to be realistic. We're an economy that's 1/10 the size of the Americans. that we are far more reliant on the trade relationship with them than they are on us. And so trying a tit-for-tat tariff war without addressing the underlying issues it's not going to go well for Canada. So I don't think it can hurt to try the diplomatic approach and try to take a win-win.
Smith says Canada can form a, quote, perfect partnership with the U.S. to provide oil and gas at stable prices so the Americans can focus on boosting their own energy exports. Last week, she declined to sign a joint statement with other premiers and Prime Minister Trudeau that said every possible countermeasure is an option.
We have more now on the Liberal cabinet retreat where the Prime Minister spoke with reporters.
And while the Prime Minister is prepared to fight tariffs, he's also taking a conciliatory tone when it comes to the U.S. CTV's Colton Prale joins us live now from Quebec with more on this. Tell us more.
Yeah, that's just it. This is a situation where the Prime Minister spoke earlier today and he said, look, the best situation, a win-win for everyone, the desirable situation is, as Danielle Smith points out, avoiding tariffs. It would be devastating for our economy. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce pegs it at about a $1,900 impact for Canadian families on an annual basis if these tariffs are in place. I mean, this is very, very significant. The challenge that you run into with Donald Trump is his unpredictability. We saw it yesterday. In the span of 24 hours, we were concerned about tariffs coming in on day one, then tariffs potentially coming in the next 3 months, and now it's tariffs potentially coming in next week. That unpredictability is very, very difficult to manage. And so the messaging from the government and from the Prime Minister is, look, we're doing our best. We're reaching out through all diplomatic channels, through every possible avenue to try to get to this administration, to convince them that this is not in their best interest. But if they follow through on this, we're ready to retaliate. And that retaliation comes in a number of steps. He talked today that dollar-for-dollar tariffs is something that he supports and would consider. But really, as he said repeatedly, everything is on the table. Have a listen.
We know that if the American economy is going to face see the boom that Donald Trump is predicting, they're going to need more energy. They're going to need more steel and aluminum, more critical minerals, more of the things that Canada sells to the United States every single day. And we are there to be constructive, positive partners. So our entire focus is on avoiding the imposition of tariffs on Canada. If they do move forward with tariffs, our response will be robust and rapid and measured, but very strong.
Now, one thing to note is that as Canada has been telling Donald Trump and Americans, if tariffs are imposed on Canadian goods, it's American consumers who pay the price. If we implement retaliatory tariffs, the same thought process, the same processes apply. Canadian consumers will be the ones bearing the cost. The government is doing a couple of things, or says they'll do a couple of things, to limit or avoid that. The first is by putting tariffs on objects and products which there are substitutions for, which there are Canadian-made substitutions which wouldn't be tariffed. The second, and really what they're focused on, is trying to ensure that there is government support. So if we do implement retaliatory tariffs, the government says they will be there for Canadians and Canadian businesses to help support them financially through that burden.
CTV's Colton Prale live for us in Montebello, Quebec. Appreciate it.
You got it. President Trump's February 1st tariff threat is hitting home here in the GTA.
The impact, we're told, would be devastating to the economy. CTV's Sean Leathong has the latest in his multi-part series.
From parts as small as these to the assembly line in plants like Ford and GM, the threat of 25% tariffs by U.S. President Donald Trump against the Canadian auto sector creates a sobering fear.
He's looking to exact some pain.
Flavio Volpe is the president of the Auto Parts Manufacturers Association in Canada. Representing 250 independent parts producers, he says the pain could be immense.
I'm worried about some auto parts companies and actual major automakers becoming casualties in a fight that none of us need to have.
Passenger cars and auto parts represent the second and third largest Canadian exports to the United States, worth over $55 billion and $23 billion annually.
So anytime you put in 10% or 5%, you are causing an existential threat to those businesses, the health of those businesses. 25% is nuts.
Volpe is familiar with a tariff fight, having worked with the Canadian government during the previous Trump administration, earning praise from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland.
So help me God. Congratulations, Mr. President.
Trump didn't mention tariffs on Canadian exports in his inaugural address, but the new U.S. president did lay the groundwork.
We will tariff and tax foreign countries to enrich our citizens.
Volpe says while the pain will be felt here in Canada, tariffs will not enrich Americans.
The first people to feel the pain will be the Americans. The first companies to feel the pain are Americans.
This is a collective on the ruling system.
In part one of this series, we walked through auto parts maker Ultraform Manufacturing in Etobicoke, where owner Casey Vasudeva says Canada and the U.S. are too intertwined.
Even if Mr. Trump goes do whatever he does, he can't unwind it.
One example is raw materials. These parts are aluminum, a metal that Canada exports to the U.S. in great quantities.
America, or the U.S., consumes 5 million tons in a year, but only produces 700,000 tons. So they are a highly deficit market and totally dependent to imports, especially from Canada.
Jean Simard is the president and CEO of the Aluminum Association of Canada. He says that when Trump placed a 10% tariff on aluminum mined in Canada back in 2018, demand remained the same.
So the metal kept going to the States, but the cost of the metal in the States went up tremendously,
driving up the price for items manufactured in the United States, from autos to auto parts, even fighter planes. So while pain will be felt on both sides,
peace is not going to come quick either. 2025 is going to be a tough year.
But they are preparing to go back to the table. Shanli Thong, CTV News.
And today is President Trump's first full day back on the job.
He's already set an incredible pace for change with scores of executive orders. CTV's Scott Hurst joins us now with the latest. And Scott, after his inauguration, Trump fired off dozens of presidential directives. What were some of them?
Nathan, of course, the threat of incoming tariffs potentially on February 1st is one of the biggest things hanging over Canadians that could impact us on a dollar figure. But Trump did sign a whole stack of other executive orders on his first day in office, promising some sweeping changes and following through on some key campaign pledges and also settling some political scores. One of those particularly is helping out January 6th rioters, whom he's often called hostages. Of course, January 6, 2021, when thousands of people stormed the U.S. Capitol as Trump and his allies pushed false claims that the 2020 election was rigged and stolen. So in one of the executive orders, Donald Trump issued pardons, commuted sentences, and vowed to dismiss cases altogether of some 1,500 plus people charged with crimes connected to that day on the U.S. Capitol. The sweeping act basically ends one of the largest FBI investigations, as Trump has claimed many of these people were unfairly targeted and treated by the Justice Department. Nathan, something we've often hear him claim as well about himself many times on the campaign trail.
So much done already. Today will be his first full day on the job. What can we expect from him today?
We're expecting U.S. President Donald Trump to meet with congressional leaders, and we've also heard that from the press office that we're expecting a massive infrastructure announcement, but likely expect unpredictability, as you remember from the first term as Donald Trump was president when he was in the Oval Office the first time, and things could change on a moment's notice with a social media post. But one of the other things we should watch out for in the days and weeks ahead, also coming from one of his executive orders, is the beginning of his campaign promise of mass deportations. In one of the executive orders, Nathan declaring a state of emergency at the southern border, allowing the Defense Department to deploy military and National Guard. As I mentioned, following through on one of the key campaign promises that really rallied up supporters for many weeks and months leading up to the election. So over the days and weeks ahead, it'll be interesting to follow through to see exactly where they go and how they begin this form of mass deportations, Nathan.
All right, CTV's Scott Hurst with the latest on the Trump presidency. Thank you.
Thanks, Nathan.
In the Middle East, Palestinian health officials say Israeli forces killed at least 8 people and injured dozens of others in the West Bank. The ceasefire with Hamas does not apply to the occupied territory. In Gaza, the truce appears to be holding. CTV's Heather Wright has the latest.
It is day 3 of the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. Early yesterday morning in the middle of the night, 90 Palestinians were released from Israeli jails, and that completed the first phase of this ceasefire. We're going to continue to see the staggered release of hostages from Gaza and Palestinians that have been held in Israeli jails over the next 6 weeks as mediators begin working behind the scenes to try to hammer out the details to make this ceasefire permanent. Now, as part of this deal, aid has begun flowing much more freely into the Gaza Strip. About 600 trucks are coming in every day, half of them slated to go to the north. That is where international groups say famine is imminent, but they are having challenges getting there. We know so much of Gaza has been destroyed over the course of this war, and so navigating those streets is difficult for those aid trucks. And I should note also that the trucks coming in also include fuel to get to those hospitals, to get things as much up and running as possible as people start to head out on the streets again in Gaza. Many are returning to their homes, but finding really nothing left. And so the process of beginning to rebuild Gaza is starting, but is not going to start really in earnest until this ceasefire becomes permanent. And so that's what's happening behind the scenes, trying to work out those deals. Meanwhile, here in Israel, there is also that sense of happiness, but trepidation as well, in terms of whether this can last, whether it can last long enough for all of the remaining hostages and the remains of those hostages that were killed in Gaza and killed on October 7th to come home. There is hope here, people waiting for that next release of hostages, which is slated to happen on Saturday. Back to you.
A 12-year-old chess prodigy from Mississauga reflected today after recently becoming Canada's youngest international master. Aaron Reeve Mendez came in first at the 2024 North American Youth Chess Championship in Virginia last month. He says he was first attracted to the game in part because of how complex it is, and points out that no matter how much time spent at the board, you can't solve chess. Mendez got an early start, spending a lot of time playing the game from a young age.
Well, we are forecasting a daytime high today of -10, and the overnight lows have been cold too, but interestingly enough, not record-breaking. Here's a look at what you can expect for this afternoon. -10 degrees, feeling like -18. The record low to beat is almost -26 degrees. Here's the thing, though. It is easily going to feel like that overnight tonight and into tomorrow morning, and in conditions like that, frostbite rates go up. The risk of frostbite is high. In fact, exposed skin can freeze in anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes. There is some relief from the cold on the way. We'll show you when and talk about just how far into the United States this cold is extending after this break.
Well, we are under an extreme cold warning, and it's so cold that some things don't work. I was trying to close the garage door, and that little box just wasn't liking it. It's this cold. I had to manually do it.
It's the effect of the cold, and it's just, even just having your gloves off for a second to use a key can be painful because you really need to cover up at all times.
Absolutely. And we've been talking about the cold for days now. We've been feeling it for days, but there was just something about this morning when I stepped outside. Your skin was stinging. That's just how cold it was. And overnight tonight, believe it or not, we are expected to be even colder, hence why Environment Canada has issued that extreme cold warning. Let's talk about everything you need to know. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm Injury Lawyers. You don't pay unless they win. Now, I think it's worth mentioning just how far-reaching these impacts are when it comes to the extreme cold and also active weather. We have had snow in parts of the southern United States, and it continues to fall right now around Houston, over toward New Orleans, and even impacting states like Alabama, Georgia. Florida's Panhandle getting some snow at this hour, too. And temperatures, look at this, below freezing in Baton Rouge, below freezing in Houston as well. Only 12 degrees this hour in Tampa, Florida. Of course, we are much colder here on this side of the border. -11 degrees now in Toronto, so we're slowly seeing our temperature climb. But it is going to continue to feel like -20 right through the height of this day. Hence why these extreme cold warnings that have been in place for Northern Ontario from Manitoba over toward Labrador have now been expanded to include all of the GTA. Last night, Hamilton was added to it, but now Toronto, Durham region, York, as well as Halton included in this. Again, going to feel like minus 30 overnight tonight and into tomorrow morning. The core temperature will be about minus 19 degrees. That could be the coldest temperature we've experienced so far this season. Part of the reason for the cold weather, the clear skies. There's no cloud acting as insulation. And tomorrow, though, we will get a little more in the way of cloud, maybe some flurries as well. So that might actually help insulate us and bring our temperature up a little bit. About minus 12 is what we're forecasting in Stratford, but minus 9 degrees in Burlington as well as Vaughan. Some sun, but again, a little more in the way of cloud cover compared to today. Minus 13 degrees for you in Haliburton and minus 9 in the Belleville area. So polar vortex is here. We've been dealing with it for some time. I'm happy to say that by the time we reach Thursday and Friday, temperatures are going to moderate a little bit. And then, dare I say, we're a little more comfortable as we make our way into the weekend. Of course, it's all relative, but we are looking at a warm up to at least seasonal. So minus 3, minus 2 degrees. I think many of us will take that. And then there's the other part of this weather story. We've got strong winds blowing off the still largely unfrozen Great Lakes. These bodies of water continuing to bring us lake effect snow right along the shoreline of Lake Erie into Niagara over toward Prince Edward County, and then certainly around Parry Sound and east of Georgian Bay. Some of those areas are going to pick up heavy amounts of snow by day's end tomorrow. There's also a winter weather travel advisory in place for Niagara. Tomorrow for us, there's the cloud cover, chance of flurries, but nothing too noteworthy. Heading into Wednesday late day and then into Thursday, we could see a little more in the way of flurry activity. But again, that's a day that the temperature is going to start to improve. So minus 6 degrees for your Thursday as well as for your Friday, minus 3 on Saturday, and then heading into Sunday, it's possible that we will see a temperature around minus 2, maybe minus 1 on Monday. Dream bigger for a brighter tomorrow. The Princess Margaret Cancer Foundation is launching its Spring Home Lottery today, featuring over 17,000 aspirational prizes valued at more than $18 million. Now imagine winning a stunning $9 million grand prize that includes an Oakville show home designed by Brian Gluckstein, and you get $500,000 cash, plus a gorgeous $2.6 million grand prize with a show home in Georgian Bay and $50,000 cash. The VIP prize is a new dream home makeover with Baumler quality construction. Or take $200,000 cash. The $1.6 million bonus prize with a downtown Toronto condo, plus $50,000 cash. And let's not forget the much-loved, world-famous $2.8 million early bird prize with a breathtaking Muskoka lakefront cottage, plus $50,000 cash. Plus, you can win big cash prizes with the 50/50 cash calendar and the Wanderlist add-on. Visit the places you've always dreamed of. You can add these on for only $25 each. Every ticket gives you a chance to win life-changing prizes and helps fund life-saving cancer research at the Princess Margaret. Get your tickets today at princessmargaretlotto.com or by calling 1-866-631-1234. Nathan, I'll send it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay. Coming up, the dream of a floating home turns into an investment nightmare for some buyers. CTV's Pat Ford will have the story.
A company north of Barrie is offering a unique way to live on the water, creating floating homes it claims are inexpensive to live in.
But several people who invested in these floating homes say after they paid for them, they were never finished. CTV's Pat Foran has the details.
The company Live on the Bay out of Port Severn has a website that shows what floating homes have to offer. Some are made out of shipping containers that have been placed on flotation devices. The homes are built as a way to navigate the waterways or stay put at an island or marina. Wayne and Kathy Paquette fell in love with the idea.
And you don't have to pay taxes, you don't have to pay this, you don't have to pay that.
really lower your cost, I started thinking, wow, I could actually retire.
The Paquettes say they handed over $265,000 for their floating home. It was to be completed last May, but there were countless delays and it was never finished.
We have been taken advantage of, and we have lost our life savings, $265,000.
I would like my money back, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Rhonda Kemp says she moved back to Ontario from Alberta believing a floating home was an inexpensive place to live in retirement. She paid $168,000 for one, which she says was never completed.
I've worked hard all my life, raised 3 children and so on, and now I have nothing to show for it.
Jim Lewis told CTV News Barrie his custom-made 2-story float home was supposed to be ready last July.
He has unfortunately abandoned the project.
Lewis says he paid $350,000 for a floating home he can't use.
When he abandoned it was only the flotation device and the frame. We've had to complete the rest on our own.
All 3 customers gave money to Joe Nimmons when contacted by CTV News. Nimmons said he completed what he was supposed to and blamed the 3 customers, saying they changed their plans during construction, which led to delays.
I'd like to finish their homes in a way that makes them happy in every single one of these cases. They all owe me money. I'd like to have them pay up to where they are, and then we'll build some more for them.
Nimmons' website continues to offer floating homes for sale. Customers we spoke with worry they'll never have their projects finished. Even if they do, it's not clear where they're allowed to keep them.
He said that we could just put it out on the water and park it anywhere we wanted to, and that was fine. It was totally legal, which it is not.
Pat Foran, CTV News.
We take you live now to Toronto Police Headquarters, where a news conference is just getting underway. There's Police Chief Myron Demkew announcing the largest seizure of cocaine in Toronto Police Service history, the results of what they're calling Project Castillo. Let's listen in.
Traveled all the way from Mexico over the United States southern border and then made their way here to Canada, where we stopped and seized them. This investigation required months of effort. I can tell you that getting 835 kilograms of cocaine off of our streets will make a huge difference for the well-being of our communities. And not only our communities here in Toronto, but across the country, as we know that some of these drugs were destined to other regions, from coast to coast to coast. When we get illicit drugs off our streets, we literally save lives. We protect people, we prevent violence, and we break up criminal networks. This will always be a priority for us. I would like to take this opportunity to personally thank our partners and the incredible members of the Toronto Police Drug Squad, as well as the sworn and civilian members who work with them. This type of work takes courage, dedication, and teamwork, which time and time again, our members demonstrate as they serve our communities. Long days, time away from their families, and putting service before self. That's what I know you do each and every day. And for that, you have my and the entire organization's gratitude. Thank you for what you do. You truly are incredible people and incredible members of the Toronto Police Service. And finally, I would like to thank the Ontario government, the Ministry of the Solicitor General, and the Criminal Intelligence Service of Ontario that helped make this investigation possible. Collaboration is critical to effective policing, and we will keep working together to deliver even more results in the weeks and months to come. Thank you, and now I'll invite the Solicitor General, Minister Kersner, please.
Thank you, Chief.
Good afternoon. It's great to be here with Chief Demkew and Superintendent McIntyre of the Organized Crime Enforcement and some of our great brave men and women of the Toronto Police Service. I'd like to congratulate them and their partners from York Regional Police, CBSA, and the RCMP on this historic success of Project Castillo. Through this strategic effort, they've stopped dangerous and harmful drugs from reaching our streets and dealt a major blow to organized crime. Today's announcement is a direct result of their skill, professionalism, and hard work. To do their work and to keep us safe, law enforcement needs the tools and resources to do their job safely and effectively as possible. Our government, under the leadership of Premier Ford, is making sure that they have those resources. And that's why I'm so proud that we're able to support this operation, including through the Criminal Intelligence Service Ontario, CISO. It's just part of our overall effort to protect our borders, to stop the flow of illegal drugs and guns, and prevent human trafficking. Ontario is stepping up to bolster efforts to detect, to deter, and prevent illegal activity along the border, using drones and aircraft and canine units and specialized technology. And of course, the hard work of dedicated police officers from the OPP and many other police services, municipal police services, and First Nations police services. This effort, Operations Deterrence, is helping keep the people of Ontario safe. And it responds to concerns in the U.S. as well. Our concrete measures are protecting communities on both sides of the border.
You're watching a live news conference at Toronto Police Headquarters. And as far as show and tells go with police, this is as big as it gets. They're announcing the largest seizure of cocaine in Toronto Police Service history, $83 million street value worth. This was a multiple police agency investigation led by Toronto Police Drug Squad. It began in August of last year. Search warrants were executed across the GTA. They've arrested 6 individuals, including 2 Mexican nationals and 4 Canadians. We are going to continue to follow this story. We'll have more information at 5 and 6. We'll leave the news conference here and move on to some other news.
Thank you. Merci, miigwech. And now I'd like to call Superintendent McIntyre.
Well, if you've got a child who's been a student at a Toronto public school, we're learning more about a cybersecurity incident.
This involves schools across the country, with the Toronto District School Board providing more details on the data that could have been compromised, and it dates back to 1985. CTV's Scott Lightfoot reports.
The data breach involving the U.S.-based software service PowerSchool occurred between December 22nd and 28th of last year, but the data accessed goes back decades.
I think that this is a wake-up call when it comes to data retention.
The TDSB says for students who attended their schools between 1985 and 2024, information including name, date of birth, home address, home phone number, and health card number were accessed. For more current students who attended schools after 2017, there was additional information compromised, including medical information like allergies, conditions, or injuries, EQAO accommodation information, and principal or vice principal notes, including discipline.
They are confident that the information has been deleted and has not been copied elsewhere. So they are confident that it has not appeared on the web.
Information of parents of TDSB students between 2017 and 2024 was also accessed, including names, home addresses, home and mobile phone numbers, and email addresses.
If you have someone's name and address, and then another breach gives you information to other personal information, such as financial related information or items that they've purchased in the past, when you start taking that data and aggregating it, it paints a pretty intrusive picture.
PowerSchool has also notified other school boards in Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, and Alberta, and says they have taken steps to ensure the incident is contained and that there will be no further access to or misuse of the information.
Canada's Privacy Commissioner is now looking into this. He says he is concerned about the incident. As for the company, they say they are working to notify individuals who have been affected by this data breach and plan to offer them 2 years of free credit monitoring. Scott Lightfoot, CTV News.
Still to come, dairy farmers are uncertain because of Trump's tariff threats. Stay with us. Canadian dairy farmers are also bracing as the threat of tariffs looms.
CTV's Genevieve Beauchemin spent the day on a Canadian farm near the American border.
On farms dotting the landscape of rural Canada, attention turned south and to concerns dairy farmers like Jason Erskine may lose out in a feud over trade with Trump.
Everyone needs to just calm down and wait and see what he actually does.
Trump was short on details, but dairy has long been part of his beef with Canada.
In Canada, some very unfair things have happened to our dairy farmers.
Americans want more access to the Canadian market to sell their milk here. Canada's nearly 10,000 farms provide much of it now, protected by a supply management system that imposes high dairy import tariffs.
Farmers are allowed a fair income so that they can reinvest in their farms and in their communities.
It's just debt all the time.
The feud with the U.S. over the system has churned for years. Canada gave up a slice of the market during Trump's first term, and farmers fear the government might now give up more. This as a trade-off to avoid U.S. tariffs on other goods.
We need to be careful and try and work as a team and not be picking each other apart and sacrificing one industry for another.
Erskine's farm is a short drive away from the U.S. border.
People will get dropped off down there.
He's seen more patrols in recent weeks, part of efforts to answer Trump's demands to step up security and avoid tariffs. But dairy farmers say if Canada tries to further appease Trump by allowing more American milk to flow north, the very future of family farms and of rural communities here are on the line. Erskine says he's banking on the fact that there's been a long-standing trade relationship between Canada and the neighbors just down the road here, and he says this will continue. Genevieve Beauchemin, CTV News, Hinchinbrook, Quebec.
We have more now on the Trump inauguration. The entertainment industry as a whole hasn't always thrown its support behind Donald Trump.
But now that he's returned to the White House, the list of those who stand with him is growing. CTV's Andrea Case reports.
America, America.
When her music failed to play, American Idol winner Carrie Underwood opted to sing America the Beautiful a cappella, with those in attendance joining in. Outgoing President Joe Biden told her, great job. The 8-time Grammy winner faced criticism for performing at the inauguration of Donald Trump, but she said she was humbled and honored to do so. Famous faces in the crowd included hockey great Wayne Gretzky and Janet Gretzky. Newly converted Trump supporter Snoop Dogg is facing backlash after he, along with industry peers Rick Ross, Soulja Boy, and Nelly, performed at a crypto inauguration ball on Friday. Snoop, who in 2017 said anyone who would vote for Trump was, among other things, stupid, but when the former president granted clemency and a pardon upon release from prison for a friend of Snoop's, he changed his mind and said he had nothing but love and respect for Donald Trump. And the inauguration brought another windfall for the first couple, with the president releasing a meme on Friday and the First Lady this morning. The cryptocurrencies brought in millions of dollars upon their release. As for the fashion, First Lady Melania wore an outfit by New York designer Adam Lippis, and Second Lady Usha Vance wore a pink Oscar de la Renta coat. On Sunday, Trump joined the Village People on stage as they sang YMCA, a song he danced to throughout his campaign, and he did the dance he has become known for. On Saturday Night Live, there was lots of fodder for the comedy show. And after the longest monologue in the show's history, guest Dave Chappelle had these words for the incoming president.
The whole world is counting on you. I mean this when I say this. Good luck. Please, do better next time. Please, all of us, do better next time. Do not forget your humanity, and please have empathy for displaced people, whether they're in the Palisades or Palestine.
Andrea Case, CTV News.
More now on those looming U.S. tariffs on Canadian goods. This morning, Toronto's mayor says we have to take Donald Trump's threat seriously.
I think everything is going to go up. It's going to cost us jobs. It's going to cost, the cost of living is going to go up. It is just, not going to be very helpful. So we'll see. We're following absolutely the federal government lead, the Team Canada approach. And if myself, as the mayor of the biggest city of Canada, if I could contribute in any way, just let me know. I'm there.
The U.S. president suggested yesterday the 25% tariffs could come into effect on February 1st. Olivia Chow said she's working closely with a representative of the auto parts industry who helped negotiate NAFTA with the last Trump administration.
Now we turn to weather. Lindsay, let's talk about this cold because we have to be prepared this afternoon.
It's true. We do have an extreme cold warning in place. This isn't issued lightly. It means that it's going to be very bitter through the night tonight. Overnight low close to minus 20 degrees, wind chill near minus 30. Here's one more look at the satellite and radar. We've got some snow falling in the Niagara area. And yes, factor in those winds. It feels very cold right now. Overnight tonight dropping to minus 19, wind chill minus 29. That's what you'll be waking up to as well. Let's take one more look at the 7-day forecast just to show you that there is some hope. We've got several sunny days and temperatures back to seasonal, at least for the weekend. Nathan and Michelle.
Thank you, Lindsay. And that is CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and all of us here, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6. Have a great afternoon.